TV show is when there's somebody who creates a fake profile and they use that profile to manipulate or somehow take advantage of another person who's looking to find the love of their life. So we have teams at every site that are dedicated to deciding, is this a real profile? There are certain things that our users can do and they can flag to us that helps us identify that, and we give them those tips on the page where they do any kind of communication with someone else. It can be things like making sure somebody's story is consistent, making sure their picture matches what they say about themselves, making sure that what they say on their profile matches the kind of emails that they write you. One of the things that we do is we actually look at the IP addresses that those users are coming from. We look at the geo areas those users are coming from. If somebody's coming from an IP address in Ukraine, but they say that they're sitting in New York City, that's something that raises a red flag for us. Ad fraud is seriously diminished by the fact that we're looking to make sure there's a human user on the other end of the connection.
Now to debunk myths about programmatic, Brian Gleason of Xaxis.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Brian Gleason, and I'm not going to take the next 15 minutes to pitch you on Xaxis. There's a tremendous amount of noise in the marketplace, and we heard it from Bill a few minutes ago. What I want to try to do is talk about what's real and what's not real, and focus on what the myths are in the marketplace. But I'll start to give you a little bit of background, 1 minute on who Xaxis is, because I think it's relevant. Xaxis has been in programmatic since 2007. We're fortunate enough, we sit inside of WPP, and we're a programmatic media platform. We manage about $800 million a year. We have 800 employees, and we deal with this every day. I honestly believe that when you think about programmatic, it is changing the way media is bought and sold, and we see some amazing numbers that come along with it. 25%, I think, this year is what will be transacted digitally in the US programmatically, and that's going to go to 52% in 2016. But with that, we see all these headlines. Can digital display ad buying be completely automated? Will it take the entire stack? We look and we hear things like, for publishers, programmatic is imminent. We know that. But there's also a lot of questions, right? Marketers puzzled by programmatic advertising. Again, I deal with Bill quite often in the A&A because I think there are a lot of questions in that marketplace. We live with this stuff every day, right? So we're going about, we do it, we hear it, but there's a lot of challenges and there's a lot of noise. And I want to take a few minutes to tackle some of that noise. The first one being is technology makes things less complex. Is that really true? Digital is hard enough. Marketing is hard enough. And if you've ever dealt with a company and tried to figure out how to deal with a CRM system and get leads between sales and marketing, that's complex. Now, completely change how marketing is done, and it gets even harder to be able to do. This is an eMarketer study that came out this year, and it asked both agencies and marketers, what are the biggest challenges you face? The second one at 28% was a lack of understanding. There's so much noise, but why can't they understand it all? This is pretty easy, right? We look at the Lumascape and we think about, hey, each one of us probably sits in a little box in here, and I've seen all the graphs that say, listen, we're the company that takes it from the left to the right, or the right to the left. Well, there's so many different companies in here speaking all the time, trying to solve problems, but each one of us, right, has a certain story to be able to tell. We try to fit a certain part on that box. But it's complex, right? Trying to solve these challenges, you can see there's over 1,000 companies in the Lumascape. So what does this mean to the actual companies, to the marketers, to the CMOs? Well, in the past year, we heard a lot of different things. I think we've all seen that number, that spend that said there's going to be, I think 2018, CMOs will be responsible for more IT expenditures than the CIOs. And that's true, and I'm going to show you a few quotes because I think they tell that story quite well. The CIO is becoming a strategic partner who is crucial developing and executing marketing strategy. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that necessarily wasn't the case. Developing a strong partnership between CIOs and CMOs is critical to successfully incorporating digital technology in the enterprise. A strong relationship between the CIO and the CMO is essential to be able to make it all work. Getting CMO-CIO relationship is right is critical for delivering seamless omni-channel experiences for customers. So what this means is as we continue to go through these notes and these quotes, we know it's complex, right? Think about the marketing organizations and the things that they're dealing with. It's not getting easier. I honestly believe it's getting more complex. And this is the quote I referenced before, which is in 2017, CMOs will spend more on IT than a counterpart in CIOs. If we think about marketing as storytelling or making magic happen, I'm sure that people 50 years ago didn't think about getting into it and think, okay, I'm going to be controlling a massive amount of IT expenditures. No, they didn't. What they thought about was, how do I connect with my customers? And that's always been the goal. And technology makes it a bit more complex. One of our guys on our team, Evan Hanlon, who runs strategy for us, I think said it quite well. But it's the last quote in there, the last thing he said, which is important, which is, we actually have to arm ourselves with more tools. Going back to that Lumascape, there's a lot of companies that have a distinct purpose. But we have to understand how to use those tools to enable us on what we're trying to do. And it's complex. And that's when I go back to it and I think about it. So technology is not, I don't necessarily think you make things less complex. It's making it much more complex. Think about what we just learned. 50% of programmatic was a note that was quoted about was fraud. How do we prevent that? We need more technology. It's more complex than ever before, but the rewards are great. The next is something I hear quite often. My background is not an agency guy. I came from a media side. And when I look to it, you know, this is something I heard quite often, that the agency model is dead. And it's simply not true. If you look at this past year, ad agency employment is at the highest level since 2001. Stocks are at all-time high. It's a good time to be an agency. Very different from the story that we hear every day. U.S. agency revenue increased almost 4% to $40 billion in 2013, a record revenue. Agencies are on track for another growth year in 2014. My boss's boss's boss, Sir Martin Sorrell, WPP is fortunate to have some of the most celebrated agencies, and we will continue to be successful. And we just recently announced a 3% increase in reported revenue. So the notion of the agency being dead simply isn't true. However, it's changing. If we look to thinking about what the model of the future will be, we know that I just said all media buying is changing. We went from 22%, from 0 to 27% of all media traded programmatically. That's going to 52%. Digital's becoming increasingly important. So we know that the agency model is not dead, but it's evolving. If we look at this, what we can see is the revenue within the agency from digital is gone from 25% to 35%. Staffing growth, 12.5% increase. Revenue growth, 13.8% increase. So what we know is digital's changing and it's building within the agencies. No new news to everybody, but it goes against the notion that the model is dead. At WPP, what we believe is a strong cross-agency team approach. This number actually blew me away when I first heard it. We have 35,000 people focused on our top 35 clients. Go back to that first stat that I said that it's becoming less complex. If it was, there was no way we'd have 35,000 people focused on our top 35 clients. It is hard. And to go back again, while I'll keep referencing Bill, it's incumbent upon the agency to deal with things like fraud, like viewability. That's our job. It's what we do. And we have to be the best in the business. It's a community effort. If that really is the fact that 50% of what we just said of all digital media programmatically traded is fraudulent, we all have a big effing problem, right? Because that takes away all the benefits of this business that we're trying to change. We have to focus on it. While the traditional model persists, the agency sector cannot afford to disinvest without cross-channel integration. Rob Norman said that, and I believe it's true. What Rob was saying is, hey, we have to rethink the way that we're doing things. And Sir Martin recently said last week, headline writers will continue to proclaim the death of advertising and marketing and agencies, and they'll still be wrong. So if you look back to those numbers, the agency model is not dead, but it is evolving. And the agencies that continue to push and think about technology, think about fraud protection, think about how to use digital to be able to enable their clients to get close to their customers is key to be able to do it. All inventory is bad. This is a challenge, you know, and we look to it, and Bill's study is spot on because we have to address this head on. But it's not all inventory is bad. There's a lot of phenomenal inventory in the marketplace. But if we throw that broad statement on it and say, hey, it's all bad, all exchanges are bad, all private marketplaces aren't good, you have to think about what we're saying and actually dive in a little bit there. Marissa said the opposite of programmatic is not premium, it's manual. I believe that. If we look at a typical stack, and I know you guys deal with this quite often, but I think we have to categorize and begin speaking to what type of inventory we're talking to. So open exchanges, a tremendous amount of risk, but scale, right? We have to utilize technology to be able to eliminate the fraud within those exchanges. Private exchanges. A private exchange necessarily isn't the only answer that we can do. We have to think about viewability across all of these different segments. And then programmatic direct, a one-to-one relationship, is we able to deal with it. So all inventory isn't bad, and for Xaxis, what we believe is we like to have a direct relationship with the publisher, because if we see it and we have a relationship the same as you would with any other places, you understand what you're getting. We deal with 300 publishers with 350 sites, and that's continually to grow because not all inventory is bad, and we have to understand where we place that inventory. I think if you look at the ad stack of how publishers are dealing with the ecosystem today, it's a challenge of where they put managed tags and what they do. But at the top of that stack, there's a tremendous amount of valuable inventory, 100% viewable. You have large impact units you're able to do, guaranteed. And then you also have other options, exchanges and networks. Again, we're not saying that those are bad, but we have to think about the price that you would pay for each one of them. So to go back to that, just to finish off on all inventory is bad, no. Programmatic is a great tool. We've got phenomenal inventory opportunities in the marketplace. But when we speak to them, we have to be clear about what that opportunity is. We have to focus on a private marketplace. We have to focus on a one-to-one relationship. We have to focus on things like viewability. My mom, when she talks about it and she explains what I do, she always says big data, because I think that's where she thinks that's what I do every day. But big data we hear all the time. And one of the myths is big data means better targeting. That's simply not true. It's about the right data and understanding the data. If you think about the complexity that we said early on, right, in the marketplace, this is because what it is. Understanding data and understanding how to put these packages together is extremely complex. And we have to understand the different types of data. The client has to understand first-party data. What is their asset? What do they have? How do they protect it? And how do they link it within their own organization? How do they work with other companies to be able to make sense of it? That's all extremely important for them. Companies like mine, we have to understand our platform data. And it's a term that we think about second-party data. Think about this, the glue to be able to stitch things together, right? To take the client's data, combine it with ours, to be able to build large audience pools. It's extremely important. And lastly, it's been around for a while, but third-party data. Right? This dates before the ages of digital. We've had this, but we have to understand the right data to be able to pull in at the right time. I'm not a believer that all data is equal. I don't think it's even close to the case. I mean, in the beginning, a few years ago, we said just put data on a plan, right? If I keep putting line items, I keep adding those data segments, that's going to help us. But then everybody in the business kept bidding on those segments. And what we found was we're all bidding against the same data. So understanding which data segment is extremely important. It's not just big data, it's right data. And we look to it, what we always refer to it as, is I always think about data as different languages, right? When you go into it, you have first-party, second-party, third-party data. If we're all speaking different languages, there's no way to get everybody to communicate together. We have to have one common platform to which those data segments become like currency, one currency that flows throughout the platform. And then we have to amplify that. One of the things that we talk about, too, is how do you amplify data segments? How do you find the right user at the right time? That's something we all use, right? I want to get the right user at the right time at the right price. Well, it goes back to that first notion that it's big data just allows better targeting. It doesn't. It's the right data, understanding what the right data is, and the ability to amplify that. Lastly, I'll leave you with this before I finish, which is clients should take it in-house. We've just heard some of the most complex things, even in the last hour, right, about fraud prevention, about technology, about how complex it is to be able to build these systems. Yet we continually hear this: clients are taking it in-house. It's simply not true. You look at one of the biggest advertisers in the world, InBev, recently, since took their advertising and selected a Group M company, Mediacom, for their media budget. Why? Because it's getting much more complex than it ever was. And if you look back to a quote that Martin referenced, I think it's important, which is ad buying isn't the core competency of most organizations, right? Understanding how to do that it takes an army to be able to do. And I'll share what we have for North America. This is the team in Xaxis, which is we have 152 people, and I didn't really break this out until I first put this together, because I said, where do they all sit? Where is our talent, and what responsibilities do they have? But 18 people in product development, thinking about how to build out products for video, mobile, out of home, cross-platform. That's extremely complex to be able to do, and that team could probably be 4 times the size that it is already. Supply side, we've got 5 people just working on quality control. 5 people just focusing on what's the inventory that we have, and those are human beings. That's not technology. It's 5 people looking for signals. Then we have 10 people trying to bring in the best sites. 41 people analyzing to look for signals. And it could be signals for a variety of different things. Are we achieving the KPIs that we have on the plan? Oh, it could be a signal about fraud prevention or something that is too good to be able to be true. 33 people on strategy and investment. Hey, programmatic's important, great. What do we do with it, right? Just because I can buy programmatically doesn't mean I should. How do I put the best plan in place to achieve the client's objectives? And trading and operations, the people actually have their hands on the console and on the keyboard. We have 45 of them. So to think that a company could bring this in-house, could they? Yeah, but with the strain that most organizations have about headcount and full-time employees, it's extremely difficult to be able to do. Because buying programmatic isn't easy, and hopefully if you looked at some of the things today, whether it be inventory, thinking about things like brand safety, viewability, the prevention of bots, data, safety, privacy, being able to link them together. Creative, we haven't even talked about that, the ability to think about, okay, great, I can buy programmatically and I can do these things, but what ad am I going to show them when I get to them? Is it going to be different, and how do I judge those results? And people, goes back to that notion of the agency model being dead. Well, I don't necessarily think that the agency model is dead. Obviously, I think it's quite opposite of that, but I think the dynamic and the individuals that you see within our organizations is quite different. Whether it be engineers, data scientists, strategists, very different from what we've seen. And lastly, technology. It costs a lot of money to do this. You know, we put in last year just $25 million alone into our DMP. And we have to continually spend to be able to do it because, as I think it was the guy from White Ops had said, is this is one of the top cyber crimes in the world. We have to stay ahead and we have to invest. When it works correctly, the benefit is great. We had a client last year that spent roughly $20 million globally with them. We went back and we peeled back the onion to say, okay, great, how much did we actually save for this particular client? Because for us, at Xaxis, that's how we're judged, right? How well do we perform, and how well do we hit the objectives? For this, we were pleased to be able to see we had a $7.1 million savings, so it's significant. And there's 4 key elements that I think about, and I'm sure we all do. This isn't just, you know, proprietary for my brand. It's how I think we have to think about our industry, which is expertise, right? How well do we understand programmatic buying? How well do we understand what the future is going to be? How well do we understand where our companies fall into that, and what is the value that we bring to our customers? That's something that we always have to think about. 2 is data. We can't keep throwing around the term big data, right? Big data, big data, big data. It's the right data. So when we come in and we talk about it, and we talk to one another, let's focus about how that data solves a problem. Let's think about how that data connects us with the right individuals. Inventory. All inventory is not bad. But as an industry, we have to protect ourselves and our clients against the fraudulent inventory. We have to focus on things like viewability. It's extremely important to be able to do. And lastly, technology, right? Building walled gardens is a challenge, right? When you build up silos, it's very difficult to be able to deal with those silos. And for us, the way that we look to it is we have to be able to go across all of these different platforms to be able to bring value back. When you do it correctly, the results are what you see with savings like $7 million. So there's a tremendous amount of noise in our marketplace, and at events like this, when we get a lot of smart people in the room, it's important to be able to think about how we cut through that noise, how we say what we honestly believe that are the 5 myths, and how we begin to change that. So I appreciate your time. I'll be around for the next 2 days, but thank you very much.